Imagination according to Humphrey, Chapter 3, Ideas Fly. I was wide awake again by the time Mrs. Brisbane started to read the dragon book. The author, Cameron Cole, had invented the most clever dragon in the world. It was close to the human world, but we kept hearing about details that were lots more dragonish. Think of this. They didn't need a grill to have a barbecue. Their tissues were made out of foil so they wouldn't catch fire when they sneezed. And since they could make it rain, they had a special group of firefighting dragons to put out accidental blazes. Gil enjoyed his tour of their cloud, but one thing bothered him a lot. How could a young knight like him help his new dragon friends? Everybody groaned when she closed the book. Helpful Holly raised her hand. Mrs. Brisbane, how do you think Cameron Cole got all those wonderful ideas? He must have used his imagination a lot, Mrs. Brisbane said. How do you think the author came up with those ideas, class? He had a gigantic brainstorm, like a hurricane, Simon said. Or a brain-a-cane, my friends giggled. Maybe he saw a real dragon, Cassie said. I can tell she still wasn't sure whether dragons were real or not. Maybe he saw a bearded dragon like Pearl, Nicole said. Maybe he dreamed he had bird wings. Bird's wings, Rolling Rosie said, like I do. Perhaps he did, Mrs. Brisbane glanced at the clock. I think this is a good time to get out your writer's notebook, class. I was unsqueakably curious to find out what my friends had written. Mrs. Brisbane, is it okay if I change my mind? Thomas said. I was going to fly to Egypt to see the pyramids, but then I had a better idea. I wish I had as many ideas as Thomas did. We're not that far along, Mrs. Brisbane said. I suppose so. Would you share what you wrote with us? Thomas read from his notebook. If I could fly like an eagle, I could go to any football game I wanted to see. I'd swoop over the stadium following every play. I could watch one game and fly straight to another game and see it too. Somebody said, cool. I think it was Simon. I've never been to a football game, but I have seen them on TV at my friends' houses. It's such a confusing game. Maybe if I had wings, I could hover over the field and figure it out. What if it rains? Tall Paul asked. Thomas thought for a second, then he grinned. I'd have waterproof feathers. Thank you, Thomas, said Mrs. Brisbane. Why don't you add that part about waterproof feathers? Yes, ma'am, Thomas answered. I climbed up to the tippy top of my cage so I could see all my classmates as they read their paragraphs. It was fun to hear about Rosie flying to the pyramids and seeing that big, scary statue called the Sphinx. I was happy to hear about all the places Kelsey would go to watch the ballet. And my heart did a little flip-flop when Holly read about how easy it would be to visit her friend Phoebe. Mrs. Brisbane called on Joey. Mine's kind of short, he said. She told him to go ahead and read it. If I could fly, I'd go to Africa so I could see animals in the wild. Joey looked up. That's it. It's a good beginning, Mrs. Brisbane said. Next, why don't you name some of the animals you'd most love to see and why you like them? Joey looked relieved. Okay. My whispers were wiggling when Mrs. Brisbane called it on Do It Now, Daniel. For one thing, he didn't always get his homework done on time. And for another thing, I'm not sure a teacher liked it when he said he wanted to fly back home and go to bed. So I was happy to learn that he had done his homework, and he changed his topic. If I could fly like a helicopter, I'd go see my favorite author, Daniel said. His name is D.D. Denby, and my books about a magic backpack are really great. His books. I hope he keeps writing them because I would never get tired of reading more. That's a good start, Daniel, Mrs. Brisbane said. I'll bet you said you wanted to fly home and go back to bed because you wanted to finish a magic backpack book. Daniel grinned and nodded. Tomorrow I want you to add a descriptive word in front of your noun, Mrs. Brisbane said. If you said bird, put a word that describes a bird. Can anyone think of one? A few hands went up. Graceful bird, Rosie said. Philippe said, huge bird. Cassie said, beautiful bird. Mean bird, Simon suggested. Mrs. Brisbane said they were all good. I liked them too, except for the mean bird. Use your imaginations and be as descriptive as you can, she added. Mrs. Brisbane moved on to science and something called gravity. I didn't understand it at all, but if we didn't have it, we'd all be floating in space. I guess that would be a little bit like flying. I decided to take a spin on my hamster wheel. I was happy that gravity kept me from floating away. After lunch, Sophie came into the room first and headed straight for my cage. Humphrey, did you hear me reading about going to the island of parrots and talking with them? Have you ever met a parrot? Do you like parrots? Oh, I wish you could talk to them with me. Me too, I squeaked, but I knew she didn't understand me. I have to admit, I sometimes have a hard time keeping up with Sophie because she talks so much and she talks so fast. There's not a lot of time between the end of the school day and when Aldo comes to clean, but I really wanted to see Gigi before she went to sleep, so I took a chance. When the school was empty, I jiggled my lock that doesn't lock, and it swung open as usual. Og, I'm going to visit Gigi, I said, but I promise I'll be back before Aldo comes in to clean. Boing! Og hopped up and down. I know he worries about me when I'm out of the cage. I'm glad he worries about me. To squeak the truth, I worry about him too. I scrunched under the door and hurried as fast as I could to room 12. Hi, Gigi, I said as I pushed under the door. Are you awake? Oh, yes, Humphrey, Gigi said in her soft voice. I don't think I'll sleep at all tonight. Why not? I asked. Wait, I'm coming up there. I grabbed onto the blinds cord and swung my way up to the table and made the big leap. I slid right past Gigi's cage. Whoa, sorry, I said as I scrambled back. Don't worry, it happens sometimes. Now what's this thing about not sleeping? Gigi shivered. I'm scared, Humphrey. What are you scared of? I asked. Gigi moved closer to where I was standing. Miss Max said I have to go home with one of the students this weekend. She stopped shivering and started shaking. That'll be fun, I squeaked. I love going home with my classmates. Really, that's the best part of being a classroom pet. It sounds scary to me, Gigi said. Humans are so large and so loud and so different. And what am I supposed to do? Don't worry about a thing, I told her. The humans are nice and they'll love you. Of course, if you entertain them a little with squeaks and tricks, it makes them happy. Oh, Gigi sighed. I don't know any tricks. That's all right, I assured her. They'll think anything you do is a trick. Listen, don't be frightened. I've been to many human homes, and I've already had a great time. Gigi shivered again. If you feel scared, remember that your friend Humphrey says everything will be all right. I tried to sound encouraging. Suddenly, I noticed the time. Uh-oh, I have to get back to my cage before Aldo comes in to clean, I said as I slid down the table leg. Remember what I said? Thanks, Humphrey. I'll try, Gigi squeaked back. After Aldo had cleaned the room, Og and I were alone. Again. Gigi's worried about going home with a student, I told him. Boing, 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 he twanged. I was sorry I had said that because Og doesn't get to go home with classmates on the weekend the way I do. Frogs can go without food longer than hamsters. But Og has gone with me to Mrs. Brisbane's house, which is something we both love. I think she'll be all right, I told Og. He didn't answer back. I opened my notebook and read what I'd written the night before. If I could fly, I'd fly like a flying squirrel all over the world, I read. Boing, Og said. Eek! I hadn't realized I was reading out loud. Do you like it? I asked. All I heard was Og splashing around in his tank. I don't think I like it either, I muttered. Was it as interesting as Daniel's helicopter trip to see his favorite author? Or Rosie flying like a bird to see the Sphinx? Or Simon breathing fire on a pizza in Italy? Did my big brainstorm turn out to be a drizzle? I sighed and read it again. After a while, I picked up my pencil and added one word. I put speedy in front of flying squirrel. My writer's ramblings. I liked my idea last night. I liked it quite a bit. But when I read it back tonight, I'm not so sure of it.